MSW Media.
So yeah, now it's clean up on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be clean up on aisle 45.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 274 of Clean Up on Aisle 45. It's Wednesday, April 22nd. Wow, 2026. I'm Allison Gill. I had to double check.
Yeah, we rolling through the month, right? What's up, AG? Harry Dunn here. All right, so we got lots to cover today, including the DOJ. Now, this is crazy. The DOJ asking the court to vacate the seditious conspiracy charges against the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. And yet, check this out, another January 6th rioter convicted of child pornography.
Of course.
Who would have thought?
It's what an odd pattern to emerge. Now, we have that, and Trump's Department of Justice is asking to refund the restitution payments from a husband and wife team of insurrectionists. And I guess the family that insurrects together. Anyway. And also, per usual, Trump is in negotiations with himself over a $10 billion IRS payout. But first.
Of course he is.
Right? Oh, that's so gross. But first, we have some Hall of Fame patrons to thank, including Jens Eilstrup Rasmussen, Carol Hopkins, Jeffrey Kincher, Dr. David, Greg Kreimer, Kimberly D. Stephen, Deborah Kirby, We Will Survive, Tiffany Trump Was Adopted, and Artemis's Wolf. Thank you so much for supporting the show. We really appreciate you. And on Thursday, April 30th, 8 days from now, Harry, Dana, and I are going to host our patron happy hour. Plus, all patrons should have received an email with details about our June 20th gala in downtown Chicago. Tickets are going to be available this coming Saturday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. We'll send a link out at that time. That's this Saturday. It's going to be first come, first serve. Limit 2 per patron until they sell out. And the plus one doesn't have to be a patron. It's nice, but you can buy 2 tickets. If you're a patron, you can buy 2 tickets, and the other person doesn't have to be a patron. It's going to be super fun. Super special guest was announced to the people who got the email. If you're not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/aisle45pod, AISLE45POD. We'll all be there. We're going to hang out. We're going to mingle, be an open bar, food, and it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, can't wait. Harry hugs for everybody.
That's reason alone to go.
Free Harry hugs. So, all right. So let's get back to this news. So, all right. The top story from this week is from CBS. The Justice Department on Tuesday asked a federal court to vacate January 6 convictions against a dozen former members of the right-wing Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, most of whom were convicted of seditious conspiracy, aiming to wipe away some of the final Capitol riot charges that were still standing. Hours after returning to the office last year, Donald Trump issued pardons for almost everybody convicted in connection with the January 6th attack, but 14 people, including the 12 referenced by the Justice Department on Tuesday, instead, they had their sentences commuted to time served, allowing them to leave prison while leaving their convictions in place.
Yeah, it also left their appeals in place, which is where this filing comes. Now, these 12 of 14 include Stuart Rhodes, founder of the Oath Keepers, one of the higher-profile January 6 defendants. At the time of his conviction, prosecutors said Rhodes and other members of his group, quote, began plotting to oppose by force the lawful transfer of presidential power after Trump lost the 2020 election. On the day of the Capitol riot, Rhodes, quote, coordinated activities as a group of Oath Keepers marched on the Capitol, according to the DOJ. Back then, the old DOJ. Rhodes was sentenced to 18 years in prison, which was far too short, in my humble opinion. As a matter of fact, Merrick Garland filed a notice to the court that he was going to ask for a resentencing because these sentences came in too low, but that never happened. But he was supposed to serve 18 years in prison for seditious conspiracy and other charges.
Yeah, and we see how that turned out. Also included are the 4 Proud Boys who were convicted for their role in the January 6th attack. Those include Ethan Nordine, one of the far-right group's leaders, who was sentenced to 18 years also in prison after being convicted of seditious conspiracy alongside Joseph Biggs and Zachary Rail, whatever. You don't matter enough to get your name pronounced right.
Who cares?
A 4th Proud Boy whose conviction the Justice Department is trying to vacate, Dominic Pizzola, becoming one of the more recognizable faces of the attempted insurrection after the video showed him smashing a Capitol window with the stolen riot shield from a police officer. He was convicted of assaulting or resisting officers, robbery, including government property, obstruction, and other charges.
Yeah, now the Justice Department said at the time, back then, Nordine and Pizzola, quote, participated in every consequential breach at the Capitol, leading a group of Proud Boys onto the Capitol grounds, resulting in the dismantling of barricades, breaching the Capitol building, assaults on police, and destruction of property. In 3 separate cases where the 12 rioters had appealed their convictions, the DOJ on Tuesday asked for federal appeals panels to vacate the lower court judgments with prejudice, meaning the cases could not be brought again.
Yeah, in the executive branch's view, it is not in the interest of justice to continue to prosecute this case or the cases similarly situated defendants. Federal prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia wrote in one filing, and this was signed by Judge Janine Attorney, it's not Judge Janine Boxwine, Janine Pirro. Prosecutors wrote that defendants' attorneys did not oppose the motions. Of course
they didn't.
The Justice Department referred to the charges that it is seeking to drop as years-long Biden-era weaponized prosecutions.
That's unbelievable.
Give me a break.
But also totally believable. The Justice Department's move drew stiff criticism from Greg Rosen, former chief of the department's Capitol Siege section and current shareholder at boutique litigation firm Rogers Joseph O'Donnell PC. Excuse me. Quote, it's a reminder of what drove the pardons in the first place, that political violence is acceptable as long as your politics align. That's what he told CBS News, and went on to say, and it's a continuing and sad commentary on the current state of the department. Now, Jamie Raskin has filed with the court to be able to file an amicus brief, and we talked about this briefly on the bonus episode last week. There's no adversarial system here because both the Department of Justice and the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys are on the same side. Now, they tried this with Mike Flynn. You'll remember the judge said, Sullivan said, we need an adversarial voice. And so he allowed a retired judge named Gleason to file an amicus brief who said that the charges shouldn't be dismissed, but they will ultimately end in dismissal anyway. And Judge Sullivan begrudgingly dismissed those charges against Michael Flynn. I imagine that is what might happen here, but we'll have to see what Judge Mehta has to say about it and the appeals panel.
I'm really intrigued to hear what Judge Mehta is going to say, because Judge Mehta, like I said, you and I acknowledged on our bonus episode, AG, that he's the one that presided over these cases. Like he's not just, hearing about it or heard it through the grapevine. He sat through these weeks of these courtrooms and months of appeals and all the filings. And he saw firsthand, it was his court that sentenced him. So, the thing that sticks out right here is what we read earlier. Judge Janine, I keep calling her Judge Janine, but Attorney Janine Pirro. Yeah. But Attorney Janine stated it is in the interest of justice. Mm-hmm. So I'm definitely intrigued. I would say I would like to hear Judge Mehta have her come before the court and explain what injustice is being done.
Yeah, because one of the main differences between this and the Mike Flynn case is that the Department of Justice actually put forth a reason in the Mike Flynn case saying that his lies were not material. It was a terrible argument, but I don't think that that's going to make too much of a difference because of the broad prosecutorial discretion that U.S. attorneys have. They generally get deference from the court. And so I personally think that this is just going to end up being dismissed, being vacated. But we'll see. We'll see how it ends up going.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays.
All right, we've got a story on people's reactions to this DOJ motion to vacate. We're going to talk about that after this quick break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. As someone with an active online presence, privacy is really important to me. The internet makes it far too easy for personal information to end up in places it should never be. And once it's out there, the consequences can be very real. When your address, phone number, and even the names of your family members are floating around online, it can make people genuinely vulnerable in everyday life. I think a lot about that because more and more online partisans and other bad actors are willing to use that information to target people. That can mean political rivals, civil servants, journalists, business owners, or just outspoken people like myself posting their opinions online. Doxing is not some abstract internet issue. It can become a safety issue very fast. This is why Delete Me makes sense to me. It helps protect your personal privacy or the privacy of your business before the information can be exploited. I like the idea of taking action before a bad situation gets worse, especially when so much of our personal information can be found so easily. And even if you have never personally dealt with identity theft, harassment, or doxing, there's a good chance you know someone who has. I do. And once you see how disruptive that can be, privacy stops feeling optional. Delete Me can help you push back before your information is used against you. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to join deleteme.com/cleanup and use promo code cleanup at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/cleanup and enter code cleanup at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/cleanup, code cleanup.
All right, everybody, welcome back. HuffPost has published an article with reactions to the story from the first segment that we just talked about. For people who defended the U.S. Capitol from a mob of Donald Trump supporters on January 6th, the Justice Department's attempt to wipe away convictions for Oath Keepers and Proud Boys convicted of seditious conspiracy for their role in the insurrection is a damning indictment of just how far the institution has fallen. Quote, "It was bullshit." That's former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn in a statement. Harry went on to say, instead of praising the actions of the first responders for protecting the elected officials on January 6th, Trump and his administration continue their assault on the truth. That's actually former U.S. Capitol Police Sergeant Gannell in a statement.
Yeah, Sergeant Gannell, he's always, shout out to my friend right there. He's always willing to make a statement about, trying to seek accountability and the truth. Also commenting, Julie Farnham, who served as Assistant Director of Intelligence for the United States Capitol Police during the January 6th attack, said that the DOJ's move is evidence of an erosion of laws generally in America. Farnham said that she had warned department superiors days in advance, telling them that extremists were headed to Washington, D.C. and planned to target Congress, and that her warnings were ignored. What incentive is there to play by the book, she said. I think people who have nefarious intentions are kind of thinking the same thing. And a lot of people will feel now that they can get away with bad things, especially in the political realm and politically motivated violence.
Yeah, it seems like a clarion call to me from the DOJ and the Trump administration. Hey, if you want to get violent and interfere in the midterm elections on Trump's behalf,
we got you.
Nothing's going to happen to you. Yeah. Now, the Justice Department on Tuesday asked federal appeals court to toss out the convictions of Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. We went over that. And then there's also Enrique Tarrio. Trump last year had his 22-year prison sentence commuted as well. Rhodes didn't receive a full pardon, but Trump commuted his sentence. That was the 18-year sentence we talked about. And if the federal appeals court goes along with the Justice Department's request, it would wipe the slate clean for both of them and all the others. The DOJ's move came just a day before a court hearing was scheduled, during which the Proud Boys would have made their case for the appeal, and the Department of Justice would have had to argue that the Proud Boys' previous charges should stand. Attorneys for the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys did not respond to HuffPost's request for comment. The Justice Department also did not respond to multiple requests.
Not surprised. In a post on Twitter, it's always been Twitter to me, the Justice Department celebrated the decision, saying this ends these years-long Biden-era weaponized prosecutions. President Trump demanded we stop the two-tiered injustice, and we are delivering. No more rigged systems. That's so rich. That is awful. So rich.
Awful. Turning its back on the previous convictions and stopping that hearing short allows the Justice Department to, quote, save face, said Dunn, Harry Dunn, who's now running for Congress. Quote, now the DOJ doesn't have to address the appeal. And in that sense, it saves them from being able to have to lie and possibly get disbarred later for lying. This isn't about justice or setting the record straight. I think the DOJ is doing this specifically so they don't have to hear the appeal. This is so they don't have to lie or talk bad about Donald Trump. That's such a good point. Now, neither Dunn nor Ginnell were necessarily surprised by the DOJ's move, as Trump and his allies in Congress have systematically downplayed the attack that marred the nation's perfect record for peaceful transfers of power, left over 140 police officers badly injured, and resulted in the deaths of others. Ginnell himself fought off over 40 rioters and was so badly hurt that he was forced into retirement.
Yeah, the attempt to remove the charges from the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers goes against the administration's claims that it is necessarily tough on crime, Sergeant Ginnell said. If this administration really supports police, law and order, and the rule of law, it wouldn't be fighting so hard to rewrite or erase the violent history of the attack on our democracy and my colleagues, Ginnell said. But the Justice Department under Trump has seemingly abandoned much of what it achieved in its sprawling January 6th probe during Joe Biden's administration.
Yeah, now Enrique Tarrio and fellow Proud Boys sued the United States last year, too, demanding $100 million and alleging that their prosecutions were vindictive. A judge dismissed that claim, but left the door open for them to refile, and they have until the end of this month to do so. Other January 6th rioters, including Proud Boys, filed a class action lawsuit against Capitol Police, claiming they were indiscriminately hit with chemical munitions and that police used, quote, excessive force against them at the Capitol that day. If those lawsuits succeed, Harry Dunn reminds us that it's important that people remember who pays for these settlements. Quote, who paid for Ashley Babbitt's settlement money? It came from the government. Who pays for their lawyers? That's $100 million the Proud Boys are seeking that will be coming from the government if they win. They're suing Capitol Police for treating them badly. That will come from taxpayer money. That's what people need to understand. Who's paying for this? It's the people reading this right now. That's what Harry Dunn said. Quote, we have paid for it in anger, anguish, and gaslighting and physical pain. We've dealt with that, but the American public now has to deal with the pain financially. Dunn then went on to note, quote, the gaslighting happens weekly for a group of people, the Republicans and January 6th apologists and MAGA Republicans, who want to move on from January 6th. They sure keep bringing it up.
They do.
Well said, my friend. Well
right?
said.
Don't they always keep it's not, AG, you know, I have this platform where you and I talk about like the news and stuff. I'm not sharing my grievances about January 6th. We're talking about stories about January 6th people who can't let it go and who keep committing crimes and who keep on sexually abusing minors and child pornography. And they're just the worst of the worst. And they can't get out of their
violence
own way.
And yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely the Republicans and MAGA who, you know, like you said, while they continue to say, oh, just let it go, or refuse to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to just allow them to continue to lie about it, going unchecked about it. Like,
right.
nah, you lie about it, I'm going to speak up about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this has a lot to do with one of the reasons you're running for Congress as well.
Absolutely. I think that we need to have accountability. And yes, a lot of people say, I get it. AG, I'm one of the people that would love to move on from January 6th and, put it in the rearview mirror. But when these injustices keep happening that stem from January 6th, it's clear that we cannot move on until we have accountability for it. And that's one of the main things that I'm running on is accountability. We need to, I'm hauling Donald Trump's ass before Congress on oversight and get him on the record. Obviously, Donald Trump never wants to take accountability or face accountability for anything, and he'll say that he's above it. But we got to use the tools at our disposal, we, meaning me, as an elected member of Congress. But we need to fight. This is unacceptable. And the more we keep pushing it off and just trying to move on without any accountability, it normalizes it. So like we said earlier, what's the incentive for breaking the law and being violent in Trump's name? Hey, we'll look out for you. No, we can't have that.
That's probably the most dangerous part of this is the recruitment and the message that it sends. Something that the FBI was looking at as the top terrorist problem in the United States under the Joe Biden administration and earlier, even under the first Trump administration. Warnings about domestic violent extremism, particularly white nationalists, being the number one terror threat.
Homegrown terrorists.
To Americans. So, and if you remember, Judge Mehta actually, when Merrick Garland's DOJ filed their sentencing memos for the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, asked for a domestic terror enhancement. And we were kind of like, not sure that they're going to get that. That's pretty rare, but they did. The judge awarded them that terror enhancement for their sentencing, but still gave them a really low sentence, really short sentences for the time that they were supposed to, be recommended for, which is why I think the Department of Justice at the time filed notice with the court saying, we're going to challenge your sentencing. It's too low. It's too low. But again, that never went anywhere.
Yeah, but like you just mentioned, how Judge Mehta, granted that terrorism enhancement. That's why I'm really concerned or really anxious to see how he rules in this, because, like I said, he saw every bit of evidence, even the evidence that wasn't admitted or that was unable to be admitted. He got to see everything, even the stuff that the public didn't even get to see. So, I'm really curious to see how he responds to this.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll keep everybody posted. All right, we've got more stories about another January 6th insurrection is pleading guilty in a separate case involving child exploitation. Multiple victims. We're going to talk about that after this break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody, welcome back. All right, check this out. Who would have thought another story about January 6th defendants committing more crimes? This comes from our friend Ryan Riley over at NBC. Another January 6th rioter pardoned by Donald Trump will plead guilty in a separate case involving child exploitation of multiple victims, according to federal court records. David Daniel has reached a plea agreement in connection with a pending charge of sexual exploitation of a minor and possessing sexually explicit images of children in federal court in the Western District of North Carolina.
According to court documents, Daniel's lawyer signed Tuesday. In 2015 and 2016, Daniel enticed a minor under the age of 12 to engage in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction of the conduct. The details of Daniel's case emerged in part as investigators probed his involvement in the Capitol attack. Prosecutors said he persuaded another minor victim to engage in sexually explicit conduct for the purpose of producing a visual depiction of the conduct, authorities said, and that victim was under 18. It's not clear yet when he might be sentenced.
Yeah, other pardoned January 6th defendants have been convicted in other criminal cases, including child sexual abuse cases. Daniel Tochi was sentenced to 4 years in prison in March. Andrew Paul Johnson was sentenced to life in prison in March after he was convicted of child sex crimes. Florida prosecutors said Johnson tried to silence one of his victims with the promise of money from a January 6th settlement he expected to receive from the Trump administration. The administration has not committed to make such agreements yet.
Right? Now, in Daniel's case, U.S. District Judge Matthew Orso ruled in January that, quote, child exploitation is not conduct related to the events at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021, although it might as well be now because they all seem to be doing it. And that the pardon's plain language does not apply to the indictment in this case. An attorney for Daniel did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
Yeah, attorneys for Brian Cole Jr., who was accused of planting the pipe bombs outside the DNC and the RNC on the eve of the January 6th attack, have argued that Trump's pardon applies to his conduct. Federal prosecutors said Friday that Trump's pardon did not apply to Cole's conduct. I don't know how they could say that, though, AG.
They're
at or near the Capitol.
Kash Patel is stuck between a dildo and a crematorium here because a dildo shop at a crematorium.
And a distillery.
Yeah. Well, that's just always in the background, apparently.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, we got to say that allegedly because he's going after the media for reporting on that.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think the pardon applies to him. But the reason that Kash Patel is stuck between a rock and a hard place in this particular instance is because he doesn't want everybody to know that the pipe bomber was a MAGA Stop the Steal guy and was there for the quote unquote festivities on January 6th, and that his laying his pipe bombs was connected to January 6th. He was trying to disconnect the pipe bomber from the events of January 6th. But it's, it's got to be pretty impossible to do that. In the arrest affidavit, they left out all of his activities in the weeks leading up to January 6th. They left out what he did on January 6th. It's all not in there mysteriously, right?
Yeah.
And so it's pretty impossible for them to, argue against the fact that the pardon doesn't cover this, argue against the fact that the pardon covers this guy, because they would have to admit that he was part of January 6th.
Yeah. And like I said, like you said, he's a Trump supporter.
Mm-hmm.
And he made that very clear.
Yeah, and they tried to use his statements 5 years after the fact that he's not really into Trump anymore, as though he wasn't really into Trump 5 years ago when he came to D.C. for Stop the Steal. So it's pretty pathetic, but that's what's going on. We'll keep an eye on all of that. And from Law and Crime, one judicial turnabout deserves another in D.C., where refunds for pardoned January 6 defendants are currently in vogue. On Friday, Jeanine Pirro filed a motion in one such case, asking the D.C. District Court to sign off on an order that would effectively claw back funds paid to two separate agencies within the legislative branch and executive branch, respectively.
Yeah, in the underlying case, Cynthia Ballinger and her husband, Christopher Price, were convicted in a bench trial before U.S. District Judge James Boasberg. In March 2023, the court found the couple guilty on all 4 counts against them over their actions during the pro-Donald Trump riot at the national seat of the legislative government, the U.S. Capitol. In April 2023, the couple moved for a new trial. The U.S. Department of Justice at the time filed a 16-page motion in opposition detailing the defendants' behavior at the nation's capital. The defendants were not alone on January 6, prosecutors wrote. Rather, they were part of a riot consisting of thousands of people.
Yeah, but we're special.
Yeah.
Now, in March of 2025, Ballinger and Price filed a motion seeking reimbursement for the $570 each paid as part of their sentence. In April 2025, the newly constituted DOJ filed a motion in support. Quote, as part of its sentence, the court ordered each defendant to pay a $70 assessment and $500 in restitution to the clerk of the court for disbursement to the architect of the Capitol. Prosecutors appointed by Trump wrote that, and they went on to say, here, the defendants' convictions were invalidated when the D.C. Circuit vacated them, and thus there's no longer any basis justifying the government's retaining funds exacted only as a result of that conviction. The government thus agrees that so long as the clerk of the court confirms that the defendants in fact paid the special assessment and restitution they seek to have returned, the defendants are entitled to reimbursement for those payments. That's what the DOJ wrote.
Yeah, Judge Boasberg, however, saw things a little bit differently. In June 2025, he rebuffed the reimbursement request by likening the effort to a similar request denied in the federal district. Although the government agrees that the return is appropriate, the court does not and will deny the motion, Boasberg said. Y'all think that it's appropriate. We, however, don't. 2 weeks later, the defendants filed a relatively lengthy 29-page motion to reconsider the denial, replete with numerous citations to precedent supporting reimbursement under such circumstances. This time, Boasberg was convinced.
Yeah, in December 2025, the court granted the motion and said, quote, the United States shall refund defendants Ballinger and Price $570 each. In this Friday's motion, Pirro explained that there's been something of an argument as to where the money should come from. Remember, Boasberg was like, you can't get money back out of the Treasury.
Yeah.
But this is what Pirro said. In the months that followed, both defense counsel and attorneys for the government have contacted the district court clerk's office to refund the $570 each defendant paid. The clerk's office has declined to do so, stating that the court's order requires the United States, which is apparently read as the executive branch, to refund the money.
But Pirro claims her research, Pirro's research. That's just funny right there. Pirro does research. Pirro claims her research, comprising of extensive consultations with other attorneys within the Department of Justice, has turned up something of a payment source dead end. There is no mechanism through which the executive branch can directly refund money it received via the district court clerk, the motion goes on. Rather, to facilitate the refund of the defendants, the district court clerk must pull back money that it previously paid.
So to get the requested funds, the court must convince the architect of the Capitol, which is an agency under the legislative branch, as we know from your lawsuit for the January 6th plaque, They have to convince the architect of the Capitol to return the $500 in restitution that each defendant paid, and convince the Crime Victims Fund, a program administered by a sub-agency within the DOJ, to refund the $70 assessment. Quote, once the clerk's office initiates that process, the money owed to the defendants will then pass back into the clerk's custody, and the clerk can then refund the money to the defendants. It is the undersigned's understanding that the executive branch has no other mechanism by which to effectuate the refund required by the court's order. To that end, the DOJ is now asking Boasberg to enter an order requiring the district court clerk's office to refund $570 to each defendant under the terms outlined by Pirro. But I think that the refund thing is still stuck up in the appeals court. But I have a feeling that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals is going to agree with Boasberg that these reimbursements are proper under the law, which needs to be fixed, but that can only be fixed by Congress.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you know, Congress sure doesn't like to act. So,
yeah. Also, some breaking news right now. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer apparently is out. OWT. The Labor Department spokesman did not respond to requests for comment from Notice. That's according to 3 sources familiar with the matter. So she's, I guess, the next up to go. All women so far. Interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, I don't feel sorry for her, but that is interesting that it's all women, though.
No, right. Now, Chung, who's one of the spokesmen from the White House, said that Keith Sonderling will take Chavez DeRemer's place as acting Secretary of Labor, though it's unclear who the president will select as her formal replacement. She's been plagued, as you know, by multiple scandals and investigation that she was engaged in an extramarital affair with a member of her security team, accusations of inappropriate behavior, drinking on the job, ordering her staff to bring her wine during the day in hotel rooms. So we were all kind of wondering who was next. And I thought it would either be like Patel or DeRemer or maybe Lutnick. It turns out it's DeRemer, the woman of those 3 choices. So
yeah, it really is interesting that it's, like I said, it's been all women, but I don't feel sorry for those women.
No,
because they damn sure don't care about other women. So the hell with them. But let's get all of them out. Like, hey, Trump, let's get rid of some of the men too. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to replace him with bigger assholes. But
yeah,
yeah, that's the thing, though. Like, if you think that you can get a step up of the ladder on the patriarchy in this administration, you're still a dog on a leash.
Good luck. Speaking of, do we have any update? Hey, Major, we should check into that to see Kristi Noem and how she's doing with the shield work that she's doing.
I think she's just probably quietly taking a paycheck to keep her mouth shut until she gets
just
her pardon.
Shut the hell up. Exactly. Until she gets her pardon. Exactly.
That's what's happening with her and Pamela Joe and now DeRemer. I'm pretty convinced.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, if our president becomes incapacitated or something happens or it happens. If it happens so quickly that it doesn't give him a chance to issue the pardons, this cabinet is going to, it's like be kicking a hornet's nest. Like none of them got their pardons. Oh my God. Can you imagine?
Yeah. They will be absolutely livid. And probably scared as hell. Oh.
Yeah. What do we do? Maybe he's handed them out like already and just been like, just write the date in when you need it. I don't know, but we will find out, and it probably won't be long from now. So we will keep you posted. All right. We got one last story before we get out of here today, but we have to take another quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. All right, we have just a couple quick stories before we get out of here today. No Rudy news, no Lindell news, although CPAC has endorsed the Pillow Man, which I don't know what's worse, if it's worse for the Pillow Man or worse for CPAC. They're both pretty awful. And but we do have an Alex Jones update. So before we get to that, this one comes from the Associated Press, and it has to do with one of the lawsuits filed by Trump against himself. Lawyers for President Trump are engaged in talks with the IRS to resolve a $10 billion lawsuit Trump filed against his own tax collection agency over the leak of his own tax information to news outlets between 2018 and 2020.
Yeah, in a federal court filing Friday, Trump asked a judge to pause the case for 90 days while the two sides work to reach a settlement or resolution. Of course, this absolutely smells of cover-up or just, unfairness. This limited pause will neither prejudice the parties nor delay ultimate resolution, the filing said. Rather, the extension will promote judicial economy and allow the parties to explore avenues that could narrow or resolve the issues efficiently. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I got to wonder, Trump's on his 6th IRS commissioner. Did he ask the first 5 and they're like, nah, peace out. And like now he's finally got the one? Like, I don't know. We'll see. Tax and ethics experts say the lawsuit raises a plethora of legal and ethical questions. Sure does. Including the propriety of the leader of the executive branch pursuing a scorched earth litigation against the very government he controls. The president's sons, Trump Jr. and Eric, crotch fruit, are also plaintiffs in the lawsuit. When asked in February how he'd handle any potential damages from the case, Trump said, I think what we'll do is something for charity. Yeah, what, the Trump Foundation?
I always chuckle at crotch fruit because I'm just like...
Thanks.
I'm just Quote, like, what kind of like spoiled like bananas or something? Like, ugh.
He said, we'll make it a substantial amount. Nobody would care because it's going to numerous very good charities.
Yeah,
I care.
What charity?
I fucking care.
Exactly.
Yeah, what, the Please Help Bibi Netanyahu Foundation?
Yeah.
Like, what charity?
What charity is it
talking
going to,
about, bro?
Donald?
And I didn't consent. I just paid taxes. I paid more in taxes than like 15 major corporations this year.
Yeah.
And I hate it because I know exactly where it's going. It's going to shit like this.
Yep. And just like I talked about with those lawsuits earlier, who's paying for it? The American taxpayers. All right. Yeah. But anyway, Alex Jones news. All right. Promise I will not scream in the microphone like he does. Yelling just. When Infowars, the website founded by the right-wing conspiracist Alex Jones, came up for sale 2 years ago, and an unlikely suitor stepped up, The Onion planned to convert the site into a parody of itself. That sale was scuttled by a bankruptcy court. Now, The Onion has reemerged with a new plan licensing the website from Gregory Milligan, the court-appointed manager of the site.
It's a licensing deal, and it's been agreed to by The Onion and the court-appointed administrator. But it's not effective until Judge Gamble approves it, and Mr. Jones could appeal any ruling from Judge Gamble. That means the fate of Infowars remains in limbo until the court rules, probably sometime in the next 2 weeks. Mr. Jones continues to operate Infowars.com and hosts its weekday program, The Alex Jones Show. But this is pretty amazing what they've launched, and they've got Tim Heidecker coming on, who does a really good Alex Jones impression. To turn it, like you said, into a parody of itself, you can check it out at theonion.info. And the Infowars logo, now the A in Wars is the onion from the onion. And it's rainbow. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got pride colors all over it. Maybe in honor of the gay frogs that Alex Jones always talked about.
I'm gay frog, exactly. Oh,
but
man.
That's amazing. Congratulations, Ben Collins from The Onion. It's just fantastic news. I can't wait to see what kind of content they put out.
Because they're already just hilarious as it is. So
that's an interesting way to go about it. Like they couldn't outright own it in the auction, but the court-appointed guy who's the financial babysitter of all of Alex Jones's stuff that's liquidating everything, to go into a licensing agreement with that court-appointed, financial person, that is a creative solution.
Yeah, creative to say the least. So
yeah,
interested to see how this plays out. I can't wait.
Me too. So many things up in the air. We'll have to just keep our eyes on and keep reporting on.
Yeah.
Who do you think's next after Lori Chavez DeReamer? Do you think it's Patel? Do you think it's Hegseth? Do you think it's Lutnick? Who's next to go?
I was thinking somebody, was it the energy secretary, I think was on CNN, and he was saying about how the gas prices could probably stay up for probably about a year. Mm-hmm. And then Trump shot back and was like, no, I think he's wrong. So I'm wondering, it's like, wait a minute, you just made Donald look bad. So maybe you're up next. So if I was a betting man, I would throw $5 on he would be next. But who knows? The wind can blow and Trump's hair shift in a different direction, and it'll point at somebody else.
So that would be Chris Wright. So you think Chris Wright?
Yeah,
I think maybe Patel. With this latest
with the latest news going
alleged allegations, just he's denied them all from the Atlantic.
He's suing the Atlantic too, I think, for $250 million. And I think AG, he's suing to show Trump he's fighting.
Yeah.
Because something about in the filing, and I saw this, Scott McFarlane did a quick video on it, and he talked about how much of it seemed like a political paper that a congressman would read, just praising Donald Trump in the filing of the lawsuit. So I think that is done specifically and strategically to keep Donald Trump happy and smiling. Oh, he's praising me. He's good.
Yeah, that, and I mean, this lawyer, this group has filed ridiculous defamation suits before. They never make it to discovery.
Yeah,
it's like you said, and like we've always said, these are designed to cost the defendant's money, the Atlantic in this case. It's designed to cost them as much money as possible before they pull out a discovery, right before Kash Patel has to be deposed, or anybody on his security detail has to be deposed or whatever. And before anyone can, do testimony or be deposed under oath. The allegations, which Patel categorically denies, even though he denies it at 100% clip, which is the opposite of categorical, but whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to keep an eye on that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to see everybody, obviously next week on the show. Then on Thursday, April 30th, I believe.
Yep.
For our happy hour. Harry will be there. Dana Goldberg will be there. And of course, please, if you're a patron, please check your email. We've got information, including the announcement of the big, amazing special guest that we're having at our gala June 20th in Chicago. And we'll be sending out the link to get those tickets, first come, first serve, to all of our patrons this Saturday, April 25th at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So everybody check
I can't wait. It should be great.
It's going to be so much fun. I know who the special guest is, and you're going to love it. Do. All right, everybody. And again, if you want to become a patron, patreon.com/aisle45pod. All right, we'll see you on the bonus episode and next week on the public episode. I'm Allison Gill.
Harry Dunn. Thanks, y'all.
Cleanup on Aisle 45 is written, researched, and produced by Allison Gill, with editing by Molly Hockey. Our art and logo design are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios, and our music is composed and performed by Adam Orr. Cleanup on Aisle 45 is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.